Hi there, my name is Memo, this is my channel Houseplantygoodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. So you've probably come onto this video because you're worried, you're about to go on holiday and you're just a bit concerned that you're going to come back to a whole bunch of crispy houseplants. I have gone on several holidays whilst having a very big collection, so ranging over the last few years of between 200, 500 or even 600 houseplants at one given time. And I can guide you through what worked for me and what didn't, and hopefully make your experience of going away on holiday less stressful, at least when it comes to what's going to happen with your plants. So some of the topics I'm going to be touching on today is being organized before you go on holiday. Utilize anything in your kind of vicinity, whether it's apps or spreadsheets or lists or anything like that, to make the process easier. Finding the right type of person or a person generally to be able to care for your plants if you're going away for a prolonged period of time. What to expect and what to prepare yourself for, but also things to hope for. And overall, just some of the experience that I've learned over the years. I think I've probably been on 6 or 7 long trips since I've had this collection. So I've been through this a few times. Hopefully you can learn from some of the things that I went through and hopefully be better for it. I wish I had this video a few years back. Right, let's dive into the first topic, which is being a bit more organized. And by that, I just mean plan ahead on as many of the aspects of the holiday as you possibly can. So the thing I would say is check what's the weather going to be like in your location. Specifically, get it as close to where you live as possible, basically, because this will give you an indication on, is it going to be mainly overcast and cloudy when you're going to be away, especially if you're going away maybe in the winter, or is it going to be scorching hot and really, really bright because you're going away in the summer and it's going to be the sod's law always would be that you leave when all the best weather is going to be where you normally would live. But anyway, plan ahead for that specific weather as well. So an example that I would say is if you know that it's going to be blisteringly hot and sunny and all of these things, and you're worried about your plants, make sure that you've got net curtains or anything like that, or maybe move them slightly back from windows so that they're not getting as much intense light. It might mean that they might not grow as rapidly when you're away, but they will also go through less water. Conversely to that, if it's the winter time and you're worried that you might need to keep your curtains closed because of just being away and making sure that the house kind of is closed up tight before you go, then making sure that you're using things like grow lights on timers, making sure that those grow lights are secure. You don't want to have a fire whilst you're away, or making sure that you go through some advice with a potential person who might be caring for your plants. The other thing to note when you're talking about organization, it's different in terms of being organized for a shorter trip, a couple of days, or a longer trip, 2-3 weeks, for instance. Because a shorter trip, and again, this has been my experience, so it might be different for you, but with a couple of days of being away, even in the height of the summer, as long as you've done a decent watering before you go for some plants that you think might get a bit thirsty whilst you're away, you can kind of go and let them be and let them do their thing, and it probably won't be too much of an issue. The thing you really do need to kind of think ahead for is the longer trips, the 2-3 week type trips, because at that point, depending on how often you're watering your plants or what time of the year it might be, there's going to be different conditions that they're going to need to be kind of adjusting to. The big thing to say is, especially if you're going away in the summer months, is, and my biggest bit of advice really, is water everything. Obviously, don't go and water something that you've only watered the day before, but make sure that everything has been watered. It will throw your system off balance, but at least it means that you're giving those plants a good supply of water before you go. So if anything gets missed, at least you've got that comforting thought that you did the most that you could do before you left to go on the holiday. Start utilizing things like apps. And I've talked about my favorite plant care app, and I'll link it at the top there. I've got a video that I talk about how I use it. But there are plenty of apps out there. If you don't want to go down the app route, you could have something like a spreadsheet, a Google Sheet, or anything that's an online spreadsheet might be better, especially this day and age, if you're going to be asking friends and family to take care of certain plants, because you can provide them with that spreadsheet depending on how much of a favor they want to do for you. Just to make it a bit more abundant with me, I know certain plants, like I'll give you a very specific example, my Sansevieria or my snakes plant, or been reclassified now as a Dracaena. That plant, as long as it's had some water before I go away for 2 or 3 weeks, it doesn't need to get watered whilst I'm away, and it just needs to do what it needs to do. Great plant. If you're a person that goes a lot on holiday, snake plants, things like that are fantastic, because as long as you're keeping on top of it when you're there, those plants can take an awful lot of neglect. It's absolutely fine. But for some of the more sensitive plants, you might want to have that list that you can provide to somebody, but also be realistic in terms of what you're expecting those individuals to do. And by that, I mean, if they're friends and family who are really not particularly into houseplants, especially if they know how important your collection is to you, if they think that they don't have the green thumb, there's no such thing as a green thumb, but things like that, and people, when they've got those kind of concepts in their mind, it makes it really stressful for them to kind of say, yeah, I'll do this for you. So be gentle with them and kind of explain it to them in the most simple way when you take them around. And this is the other big tip: take them around and either take them through one of your waterings, or just kind of talk them through, show plants to them as well, because a spreadsheet is all fair and dandy, but if somebody doesn't know what, and I'm looking at it, my begonia melanobulata, and I just say begonia melanobulata, they might be thinking, I don't even know what a begonia is, let alone begonia melanobulata. We like our horticultural and botanical names, but a lot of people don't. So yeah, just bear that in mind. It's easier sometimes to just kind of point and show that to them. If you really want to go the extra mile, and it depends on how big your collection is, you could take a picture of every single one of the plants. I've got the benefit of the app, and that's why I'm saying my plant care app is great, because I can pretty much transfer that information over. I'm pretty sure I can also export a spreadsheet and give them to the person who's using the plant, and it's got pictures attached to every single one of the plants. So, but with a spreadsheet, you can do the same thing. You can just attach a picture to each one of your row items and give it to them, and then it makes it a lot easier. Trust me, you want to make this as easy as possible, because if you do it well, they're more likely to do it again in the future, and there's less of a learning curve to try to explain to somebody new what they need to do in terms of caring for your plants. If they've done it before, great. The other big thing here as well, and obviously I was talking about friends and family who might not have the green thumb or might not really be into plants the same way that you are. And this is one of the many reasons why you should try and meet some of your planty friends IRL or in real life, through kind of things like, I went recently to London to a plant swap event and I got to meet some lovely people. I did some local events here and I met some local planty friends here as well. It's easier if they're local rather than quite far away, basically. But what then happens is, and I've already discussed this with some of the local planty friends here as well, we are there and we've kind of all volunteered ourselves to kind of say, because it can be quite a stressful time when you're going away on holiday, especially if you've got large collections, to kind of be the other person's carer, really. And by that I mean, if you and me are planty friends and we've both got big collections, I'll say, you know what, as long as it fits, I can come over and take care of your plants whilst you're away, so you don't need to worry about it, because I kind of hopefully know enough about houseplants at this point that I should be able to, you just give me a list and tell me what I need to be doing and I'll get on with it, basically. And the same thing, if you're into it, it's much easier for me to just give you a list, quickly give you a brief rundown, maybe a couple of things to watch, and we're good to go. And you kind of know that you're leaving your plants in the care of another crazy plant person, essentially. So you would hope for the best. But that does lead me quite nicely, whether or not it's a planty friend or whether or not it's friends and family, you basically get into the mindset of accepting that you might have losses. If you're already in that mindset and going, yeah, it's okay, I know I'm going to go on holiday, I'm probably going to lose a few things, some things are going to crisp up, some things might die off entirely, and you accept that, that is quite powerful, because what then happens is, if you come back from the holiday and everything is doing great, and spoiler alert here, a lot of the times, a lot of plants, because you're not there hovering, and I say this as a hovering plant parent, you will come back and they will be doing better than when you first left them as well. And also, you'll get that excitement of, if you've been away for a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, you'll come back and you'll see visible growth on a lot of your plants. Because essentially, if you've got a big collection and you're dealing with it day in and day out, those moments aren't quite as impressive because you're seeing them happen in real time. Whilst if you've been away and come back and it's just, oh my God, that plant's doubled in size. I didn't believe it. But yeah, but be prepared for losses, basically. Because essentially what will then happen is, if you do come back and there have been some losses, you were prepared for it. If you come back and there's not been any losses, great. Bonus, essentially. But it will help to get you in that kind of right mind frame as well. Also, to not feel any form of animosity to the person who might be caring for your plants, whether or not they're planty friends or friends and family who are not really into plants, because just accept that they're doing the best that they can to keep it in your care. And it always comes back to the same thing. If I break my favorite mug, yes, I'm going to be a bit annoyed, but I broke my favorite mug. If a random stranger breaks my favorite mug, I think it's part of human nature. You will be livid, basically, because it's your favorite mug. But the difference is, if you did it, it wasn't as big of a deal. So similar kind of thing. Be aware that the same way that you might have some losses and things might crisp up, when you're there and hovering and doing all these things, the same thing probably would have happened if somebody else had taken care of it. So go easy on people. The other thing as well, and again, this is kind of to sweeten the deal with the people that might be taking care of your plants, whether or not they are planty friends or whether or not they're friends and family who are not into plants at all, is talk to them after you've come back and see if there was a specific plant that they enjoyed or they really kind of had an affiliation to, because more likely than not, there's probably going to be 1 or 2 plants that they're going to be like, oh, I really like that one. That was really cool. And they start creating a bit of a personal connection with that plant. And this is the big one. If you can, and if it's a already established plant and you maybe got a propagator already going, or you were thinking about propagating it, maybe propagate a cutting for them and give them that. Or if it's a plant that it's kind of an okay plant in your collection, but if you don't have it, then you won't be particularly sad. Give them the plant, because it will be a great thank you to kind of say, well, yes, you did all these and you really like this. Here's a little piece of that, or the whole thing, basically. And they're more likely to then want to help you again in the future, which is key, because you're not just going to go on holiday once. It's good to have some good karma in the bank there. The other thing, again, when looking at people to care for your plants, expect as well that you might need to pay if you can afford it. Because if somebody's slightly on the fence, but you then tell them, I can give you some money for it as well, they're more likely to then want to try and do it and do a good job. I know it sounds horrible, but do you know what I mean? It's going to be one of those things that if there's a bit of a financial incentive behind it, it's always going to be a good thing. And the same thing goes as well. Like, I'm going to be going away soon. I've got friends who's going to be taking care of the plants and have done it before. But if they couldn't have done it, I've got friends who've got teenagers, and they always need a bit of extra pocket money in the summer months, especially when school's off as well. So I can kind of bring those kids over here, especially because some of them are getting into houseplants themselves, and just kind of say, look, this is it. I'll explain everything to them. It's a bit of a learning opportunity as well if they're getting into the topic as well. if I can then say, look, at the end of it, everything goes all right, I'll give you X amount of money as a thank you, basically, it's a nice little incentive, basically, and you'll know that they're maybe going that bit of an extra mile to take care of your plants as well. The other big thing, and I'm going to be completely honest, I have not tried it because I don't think, last time I checked, it's not available in the UK. My location is an app called the Watering Can app in the US. And it is possibly one of the most genius ideas ever, where essentially, you know that there's certain apps that you can go and you can find somebody to take care of your pet whilst you're away. Well, this specific app is for houseplants. So, and I don't think if it's just houseplants, it might be gardens as well and all these things, but you can pay somebody to come over and do the watering whilst you're away and all these things. And I think it's one of those situations. It sounds genius, and I really cannot wait for it to get to the UK. Granted, I'm not in London anymore. I used to be for years, but it will probably blow up in London quite quickly, and it will take a while to get to the outer areas of the UK, one of which is where I'm based. But still very exciting to see that app become a bigger thing if it does. I really do hope that it does. But if you've had experiences with the Watering Can app, let us all know down below what it was like, because I'm sure I'm not the only one who's curious to see if it worked quite nicely. Another big thing to kind of remember is when you're away, especially if you're going away for a long period of time, even if it is sometime like the summer, don't expect the person who's going to be taking care of your plants to fertilize. Just get them to water, that's fine. Maybe tell them how they can distinguish pests, and even that, I would say, might be a bit of a big ask. Whether or not they're planty friends or people that are not really into plants, because that will probably just stress them out, and it's unlikely they're going to be able to do an awful lot before you get back. But I'll leave that up to you. There's certain things that you just need to be realistic with. Maybe opening a window or making sure that the curtains are drawn or just doing the watering is probably the most that you can ask of most people. The extra mile that we all go with, I don't think you can expect from most people if they're caring for your collection. The other big thing is if you're going away for a few days or even longer, you could use something like a hydrospike. And I think I've got them linked down below. If not, I will add them down below in my descriptions of most of my videos, but I'll definitely add it onto this video. A hydrospike, which will pull water out of a water container through this little pipe, bring it in, and it will essentially create a suction on this. When the plant dries out, this will dry out. It will pull water in from the tube and from the water vessel. It's great. It can be finicky to set up, so I will warn about that. But this is really good for the slightly longer trips. If you can't find anybody to take care of your plants, if you don't have an awful lot of plants, this is a good one as well. The other one that is kind of on a similar basis is the same thing with a terracotta thing. There's the same hole in the middle. You can put a bottle upturned, put it in the plant. I've not had the best experiences with this, I will say, for a longer period of time, because what this does is it creates gravity and it pushes the water, I found, through the terracotta much, much slower. But if you're going away for a few days and you want to make sure that the plant gets watered kind of gradually over those few days, this is quite good, but this will drink the water up quite quickly. It will keep pushing it out, if I'm not mistaken, even if the soil is wet. So the other one is a slightly better process because it kind of works on the demands of the plant, because if the soil is drying out, it pulls from the terracotta. This one's more gravity fed. I've not had great experiences with this, but I know some people have. But most importantly, keep it simple. So don't overcomplicate your life with it as well. As I said, look at your plants, see realistically, even if you're a hovering parent, see realistically which plants could go for that entire period without watering and take them off the list, basically. Make that list as manageable for somebody else as possible, because, and I'm not going to lie, with the collection that I've got at the moment, especially in the summer, which is where I am now, I will do an hour to an hour and a half watering every weekday. I will do a 2-hour watering every day on the weekend and still come in during odd parts of the day, especially if it's scorchingly hot and I might need to do another entire water. That is probably quite unreasonable to ask of anybody who's caring for your plants, but you can get around certain things like this. People that have been here for a while and have seen me moving things over into pond and water reservoirs, shock. This is one of the main reasons why I did it. Obviously, watering a lot less in the summer because things drink up the water quite quickly in this conservatory. But things like holidays, because it's a lot easier to tell somebody just fill up the water reservoir if it's dry. Do you see what I mean? It's a lot easier. And also, if there is a water reservoir, they might not need to ever water that plant because it's there and it's in self-watering. And I know the reality is that if you've got a lot of plants, you won't be able to move everything over in any amount of time that is kind of reasonable whilst having a transition period. And I'll talk a bit more about transition period in this video. But yeah, things like that will kind of make your life a bit easier. So it might be a bit stressful for this holiday, but take learnings from your own experience moving forward and plan ahead for the next year, if that makes sense. So if you think that things like pond or self-watering might help you for the next time you go on holiday so it's less of a stressful situation, start moving your plants into pond if you can. So things like that will make a big difference. But overall, enjoy the holiday wherever you're going. Try not to stress about it because, as I said, the reality is you might lose some plants, but also the upside is you'll probably come back and be surprised by the level of growth that some of your plants have had. So enjoy the holiday. You deserve a holiday too. I don't think people realize how much of a strain sometimes, even for something that we love, like maybe taking care of our houseplants, can be. You need a break. And between you and me, and at least I can talk about my collection, my plants probably need a break from me as well. So man. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed. If you've got any questions or comments, it's really good down in the community below with the comments. People are kind of chatting with each other. Please do have those conversations down below and ask me anything that you want to ask me. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon. And I truly, truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.